coming to a comfortable seat. I'm in what's called Sukhasana, cross-legged seat, making sure that you have enough height underneath the hips so that the hips are higher than the knees. I have a blanket right underneath. You can also come to a kneel. So if you're coming into a kneel, I'll just show for a moment. We want to bring the inner thighs energetically together, and then you can place that prop underneath the hips if you need that extra support. All right, so once you find the place that feels like you can arrive with most presence, just starting to feel a slight shift forward to the fronts of the sits bones, so those two places right underneath the glutes, and then shifting the weight back to the backs of the sits bones. So we're just starting to feel this teeter-totter motion to understand where the balance is and also where the balance isn't. So eventually finding the place where you are evenly rooted through both sits bones. And as you're doing so, just starting to feel the palms gently placed on tops of your thighs. So we're feeling this long line of energy from the base of the tailbone, up the spine, up the crown of the head. So it's almost like you can imagine the vertebrae as though they're evenly stacked like coins, one on top of the other. And a good way to understand that alignment too is what's happening in the shoulders. So if you feel the shoulders shifting forward or the shoulders shifting back, starting to see where we can find that placement where they're directly or at least closely right over the hip bones. Now, as you feel the body come into this place of stillness, just noticing what that transition feels like. So every time we come to our seat, it's this place of shifting from the effort, the doing mode, to now simply in the place of being, in this mode of receiving. And we just start to watch the natural flow of our breath moving in and out as we settle in. We start to more consciously invite the experience of sound, of temperature, light, scent. So essentially, we're collecting this information that informs us of what is here, what is now. And just becoming a little more cognizant of the natural state and flow of your thoughts right now. So we just start to observe if the thoughts feel a little more active. We start to feel also if the thoughts feel a little more neutral. Maybe if there's even a dullness, a fogginess. What's really important in a meditation practice is that we're trying to observe what is happening, what information we are receiving in a place of compassion, so a place of non-judgment. And so part of what can help us in this discovery is trying not to attach to what is happening, trying not to resist to what is happening, but rather we start to assume this role of the witness. We start to assume this place of deeper curiosity, this place of just simply labeling if a thought is coming into our awareness. We just simply label what that thought is. And an analogy that can be very supportive in this is almost viewing the thoughts as like they're clouds, shifting into our awareness, flowing out of our awareness. So there's this ever constant change that is our reality. Everything is changing all of the time, including our thoughts, including those sensory awareness indicators, including the fluctuation of our breath as it flows in, as it flows out. So there's this analogy that we start to see the thoughts in the lens of a still lake. So when we see ripples in the water, this might be the place where the thoughts are active, they're a little more flowy, maybe they're bumping into each other. But over time, when we start to turn our awareness to the body, start to zoom in to sensation, to breath, we start to see those ripples become a little more smooth on the surface. See those ripples start to soften in the flow of our thoughts. So we'll begin to turn our attention to the breath. The breath is one of the most powerful, what we call anchors in our practice to keep us in the moment and keep us in the awareness of our bodies. So start to bring your focus to the breath as it flows in and out at the tip of the nose. We just start to sense how in the breath there is this presence of sensation. Each new inhale might feel a little cooler, maybe a little drier. And each new exhale, there might be a little more warmth. There might be even the sense of humidity as we breathe out. And so we really strive to just continue to remain focused at the airflow as it moves in and out at the tip of the nose. And truly no need to regulate the breath in any particular way, but again, just observing, witnessing your natural flow of breath. And as you are breathing, of course, if any distractions start to come into the space with you, just knowing that you can shelf whatever those distractions are, whatever those thoughts are, very gently return your focus back to the breath right at the tip of the nose. So as both seasoned and beginner meditators, sometimes we get locked in this expectation or assumption world of what meditation is or what it should be. And sometimes part of that is because we have these ever constant threads of thoughts, we feel like we're not doing the practice right because we can't quite seem to quiet them, or it takes too long in our minds to quiet them. But the reality is, there's always going to be this presence of thoughts in some form or another. So the practice isn't to resist these thoughts, ignore them. It isn't to attach too tightly to them. But it's how we build the relationship so that we don't get too pulled into the thoughts. So again, over time, it becomes easier to see those thoughts drifting in, drifting out, so that we start to find these gaps, these areas of freedom, these areas of spaciousness. So we'll start to bring our attention now to the spaciousness of the breath moving from the front of the chest. Just beginning to observe that natural flow of in-breath as it expands and opens the front of the ribs, the sides of the ribs, the backs of the ribs. And as the air moves out, we start to feel the breath soften at the front of the ribs, sides, the backs. And really, it's this observation and exploration of how would we describe the breath to someone that maybe didn't know what the breath was. How would we describe what an inhale is, what it feels like? How would we describe what an exhale is and what an exhale feels like? And it may seem so simple, so obvious what it is, but when we start to break it down, we start to understand, or at least remind ourselves of the power of the breath. So the breath, like waves, we feel the rise of the wave of the inhale flowing in. We feel the softening of the fall of the wave of the exhale moving out. So continuing just for a few moments longer, the intention of the breath at the chest, sides of the ribs, backs of the ribs. Wonderful. And then we're going to finally bring our attention to the breath at the base of the belly. And today, if you're interested, starting to bring the hands to touch the base of the belly. So it's this place right above the pubic bone and right below the navel, or at least right in that general vicinity. And I encourage you to actually feel the abdominals relax as you breathe in, as you breathe out. So as a culture, we're so accustomed to pulling this energy in all the time that just giving yourself permission, in this practice at least, to feel the belly soften for a moment. When we feel the belly soften, and when we bring our attention, as we're doing here with the hands over the belly, it encourages this deeper sense of groundedness, this deeper sense of connection to the earth. So now we just start to observe and witness the flow of breath at this region in the body. And it's always interesting when we observe different areas of breath in the body and how in some places the breath might feel more prominent, but yet in other places there's still a sense of movement, but it might be more subtle. So just seeing what it feels like to bring awareness to your breathing at the low belly, and how that might be similar or different to what the experience was at the chest level and also at the nasal level. And then very slowly, we're going to start to bring the hands to rest over the heart. So connecting with our heart space, this area of our bodies energetically that governs self-love, that governs outward love. And so when we raise the word love into the space, energetically, maybe what bubbles up for you, emotionally, what bubbles up. In your thoughts, what might come to mind. And it's also okay if nothing in particular does shift or happen when we inquire what is love, what that feels like, what that looks like. But we just sit with love for a moment. And with love, there's a deep connection with gratitude. And gratitude as this way of honoring the things in our lives that are meaningful to us, that bring us joy, that bring us fulfillment. And the more we can practice love and gratitude, the more we're raising our vibration. So this sense of the more we invest in love, the more we invest in gratitude, the more we have the space to attract those types of elements to us and into our lives. So just the simple question, inquiring, today, what am I grateful for? It may be one thing that comes to mind, it may be multiple things, and allowing everything and anything to bubble up to the surface, embracing what it is that you're grateful for. And then we'll ask the question again, what am I grateful for? And slowly beginning to remove the palms from the chest, and we'll bring our hands in front of our heart, a gentle bow in the head, so this energetic feeling of bringing the chin closer to the top of the chest. So we bow inward to the inner wisdom within ourselves. We bow to the inner light, the inner love within ourselves, and also the light and the love that already is us. Encouraging ourselves to more openly embrace these qualities that are inherent within us so that we can share them outwardly into the world. We'll bring our hands to the third eye, this place of our intuition, our inner wisdom, and bowing forward to ourselves and one another.